Greetings, this is Starseed Scotty sharing an astrological horoscope for April the 3rd and 4th of 2019. So I'm going to screen share and show you the chart and Serenu so you can see all of the aspects. So the moon has just entered Aries here in the 3rd, and it will be passing Chiron on the 4th of April. I'll just get the annotations so I can show you what I'm talking about. I think the first thing I want to talk about is we have a stellium in Pisces. The moon has been in Pisces the last couple of days, and really very dreamy energy, very spiritual, could be into art and music and dance, but also delusion, escapism. Yeah, so there's always a shadow side and a light side to the sign. It depends how integrated we want to work with energy, or if we don't use the energy, it will come to us. Yeah, there's a quote actually. This was a quote I wanted to say in the last horoscope I did. It's from Carl Jung. Quote, enlightenment. So this is it's a lot. This really relates to this dense, heavy energy we have with, and transformational with Pluto. I'll get a nice picture so you can really relate to it. But it resonates to me also the Pisces energy. Because well, this was the first one. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That really resonates with Pluto. Pluto wants to transform, it wants us to evolve, but it works with the dark energy because Pluto's the furthest planet back in our, well, not the furthest, but the furthest conventionally known, the 9th planet. The figures of light is what, you know, light workers were all about: positivity, love, growth. But the imagining, this is the key word of Pisces, because if we just imagine New Earth and have dreams of butterflies and fairies and dragons and these beautiful golden leprechauns and rainbows and the new age, I mean, it's beautiful. But if it's just ideas that are not based on practical Capricornian action, then it's delusions. And there's a very cold, harsh lesson that Saturn is bringing to Pluto. Saturn is physical reality. Pluto is a kind of spiritual reality, I see. It's like the reality when we die, we meet Pluto. we get to see what Pluto's all about. And if you've done ayahuasca, then you will know. I have done. I've self-initiated into ayahuasca and other psychedelics. Psilocybin is a very good example. Also medical marijuana. They all have a way that shows us the transformative door between the unconscious, subconscious levels. Yeah, this is another one that relates to that actually. Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakens. So this also relates to Pisces. Pisces is about dreams. And there is a dream that's very important because it's our creative personal will, which relates to Uranus and Taurus, Mars and Gemini, as well as the Capricorn transformation, which ultimately can be our evolution if we do the right work. But who looks outside is that the delusion where we're looking for someone else to save us. This is some of the spiritual martyrdom, dogmatic. It's kind of like just this Piscean age, the last 2,000 years, I think there's been so much religious programming in us that we look for external, even aliens. I mean, we can have, I believe we all have starseed, avatar, higher self aspects of us in different worlds and parallel dimensions. But on other levels, people think the aliens are separate and they're actually here to save us, which is almost exactly the same as what the religions, like God or Allah, or I mean, not to judge these faiths, but in the wrong interpretation, people think that these external authorities have supremacy over their sovereignty. And to me, that's the ultimate delusion, really. I mean, they may have power, they may have wisdom, they may have amazing ideas, but nobody can tell us who we are, because we are our only source. There's nobody else in the whole universe who has your fingerprint. And this is what astrology shows us. Uranus rules astrology with Mercury. And our birth chart is the very second we're born. Will never ever happen in the history of trillions of years in the galaxy. So that's what makes us so special as sovereign beings. So yeah, this Pisces stellium though is quite nice. It's been softened a bit, I think, because Venus is here with Mercury and Neptune. And so she's going to be conjoining Neptune probably in a couple of days. And Mercury has just passed Neptune. So I think Mercury's going forward. We're starting to, I think in the last week or two with Mercury retrograde over Neptune, we've been going through a lot of our own delusions, our own stories, our own dreams, our own fantasies, just sifting out what programs in our mind are real and what programs are things that we, quite often with our dreams, our fantasies, we create our worlds in us as a self-defense mechanism to protect us from the harsh reality, because there's a sextile here to Saturn. And Saturn is very close to the South Node, which is at 23. Incidentally, in one day, actually in 12 hours, Pluto will be conjoining the South Node exactly. This is going to be powerful, really heavy energy for those who are running away in delusion and not facing their fears or facing their truth. But for those of us who are wanting to be light workers and wanting to kind of serve the planet as well as much as ourselves, then I think this could be a lighter energy, because the sextile to Neptune to me indicates that there is a spiritual portal opening, that if we do the balance of the Capricornian practical work, service, physical healing, planning our place in society, balanced with our spiritual ideology with Mercury, and then our spiritual faith with Neptune, and our spiritual love with Venus. If we have all those things together, I think this can be very helpful for us to evolve and transform our old programs of lack and fear and resistance and victimhood. That's a strong archetype of Pisces, being a martyr and a victim. It's quite often Pisces energy. We feel, my son's in Pisces. I have had a lifetime of this, and my North Node is in Pisces, and my progressor Mercury. So I know more than most Pisces energy. And I can say that it's easy to go into the martyr victim complex, because we feel the pains of the world and we know that everything's united. So it's logical to try and help everybody, to see someone else as yourself. But I've learned, especially through my Capricorn stellium and a lot of Aries energy I have, which we'll get into next, is we need to maintain enlightened self-interest or healthy boundaries. Because if we help everybody, if we help people who don't care, then they're going to take advantage of us. There's a quote I heard from a podcast. In a world of wolves, don't be a sheep. There's that old story of a wolf in sheep's clothing. And, it's to say there's a lot of predators in this world. And, I have compassion for them because a lot of them, they just live in fear and survival, which is that archetype of the detriment, the shadow of Pluto and Saturn: fear, control, aggression. The light side of Pluto and Saturn is self-mastery, self-transformation, and soul transformation. You can see with the universe, especially with Neptune. So actually the sun is going to be starting to square Saturn as well, which is kind of why I talked about the wolf, sheep's clothing, because Aries is a fighter energy, and Aries is our independent will. This is ruled by Mars. So I think later on in the week we're going to be asked to become more independent, to ask what is our own power, but use our power intelligently when dealing with the heavy karmic energies of the collective. Because I've been playing this game for 10 years of the awakening ascension with Uranus and Aries, and now Uranus and Taurus. I think Uranus wants us to slow down a bit, because Taurus is ruled by Venus, so it's a lot more central energy. It wants to integrate more. And yeah, I mean, Uranus has been sextiling Venus, not now, but the last few days, maybe a week ago. So I think that really opened up that portal for us to have divine harmony, sensual love, which is Taurus, and spiritual love, which is Venus. But I guess later on, there's still 5 more days till that square is exact. But with Sun square Saturn, I think it's understanding boundaries, because Saturn's boundaries, and the Sun is kind of, that light inside of us and our self-expression. I think it's when anger and frustration comes up, I think it's important to turn, I like to say, turn anger into passion. Aries can be very instinctive and just say things and regret it, but Saturn wants things to be a bit more controlled. Because Mars is exalted in Capricorn, even though there's a square between the 2 signs. I have Mars in Capricorn, and I find I use the will and the passion of Mars, that drive, in my workplace at a health store, and I can get so much done and serve the Capricorn energy. It's all about integration of a group. That's why Capricorn's all about society and businesses, and but also our inner integration. Mars has just entered Gemini, which I kind of like this, because Mars was in detriment in Taurus, because Mars is exalted in Scorpio, the opposite sign of Taurus. So in Gemini, I don't know if that's exaltation, but I think it seems more of an outgoing energy, because Gemini is mercurial. It's ruled by Mercury. So I think Mars is really going to help us, ask us to explore our mind more, to ask questions about our routines, our day-to-day activities. That's all Gemini energy. Have a little bit more fun, lightheartedness, because it's exactly sextiling Chiron. So there's definitely a healing element. I think, one thing I did before I did this horoscope is I read a book just to get some inspiration. And it's a really cool book. I'm actually going to show you it. called Asteroid Goddesses by Demetra George. And this is an old book from the 70s. My first astrology teacher gave me this about 5-6 years ago. And but it's a really in-depth book that pretty much was the introduction to the 4 major asteroid goddesses, which I'll show you a picture of. I think they're very influential because they're they're octaves of Venus energy, and I believe they're remnants of a destroyed planet called either Maldek or Tiamat that was in between the orbits of Jupiter and Saturn. So it's definitely divine feminine energy, and they all relate to different aspects of the underworld journey of the feminine that is reawakening. And you know, there's a masculine counterpart to many asteroids. The Trojan asteroids, I would say, probably comes to mind. Chiron's probably a masculine asteroid. But it's interesting, Chiron's only one people talk about by major astrologers. There's literally tens of thousands of asteroids in our solar system. Now, granted, most of them are very small and insignificant, but for example, Ceres is large. I think Ceres is several times larger than Chiron. So it's interesting he chose Mars as Chiron as a somewhat masculine asteroid, because that would resonate with the patriarchal system. But it's not so black and white. It's male, female, and genders. There's always an integration element of yin and yang, so to speak. The one I'm going to talk about a little bit is Vesta, a little bit later, because Vesta actually. I'll just pop it now, I think, so I don't forget. Yeah. So Vesta has just entered Aries, where the moon is right now. And just to show you, I'll look at, let's see, take away this first. There we go. So, oops. Drawing, I need to take off that, that's it. So, I've done this, I think I probably need to moon enters Aries. Yeah, so there we go, there's Vesta there. Usually I would say enter, but I think it was probably the last day. So there's Vesta, 0 degrees 31, Aries. So I was reading about Vesta, and it's interesting. She's one of the brightest asteroids in our solar system. The only one of the 4 asteroid goddesses that is visible from telescopes. And so she's going to be conjoining Chiron for the next week or 2 probably, which is really going to activate a lot of healing energy. Because Vesta is, so just to start off, Vesta's rulership is Scorpio and Virgo, which is interesting. Vesta has a name etymology to virgin, because in the history of Vesta's archetype, in Roman times, there was virgins that were like priestesses, and they kept a flame in a temple going, and it was a sacred kind of symbolic, like rite of passage of their, not really religious, but kind of spiritual practice of their, of that time frame. And so they had a lot of power because they were in the temples, they had this flame going, and people almost worshiped them, but not in a sense of a god or goddess, more as they were like a protector, like a guardian angel, so to speak. I'm not too sure all of the history, but they definitely had a very prominent role. So, um, one interesting thing from the book was, um, you see the two glyphs. First of all, Virgo. The M relates to matter, which is mother, which is the moon. And in Virgo, it's kind of like it's like an inward, not quite like that, but see the glyph there on the right side. That's a better depiction. So the circle here indicates it's an internalized energy of the moon energy, because Virgo is all about service is external, but it's all about their health, self-care. Virgo is analytical, so that's internal processing of the mind. Gemini is much more external processing, which is why Mars is good there. Whereas Scorpio is similarly the M, the feminine mother energy of the moon energy, but it's externalized, just like Gemini is to Virgo. And Scorpio has that little, I don't know what it would be called, little tail, like dragon serpent tail thing, which relates to the Kundalini. There's the Scorpio glyph up here. It's probably a little bit better, but you notice the two glyphs are similar because, according to the book, Virgo and Scorpio were the same constellation. Or no, I think more accurately, Libra was the same constellation as Scorpio. But in Greek times, or after that, they separated it because of the historical, patriarchal division of feminine power. And so we're before the internal sacred feminine and the external were united and as like a kind of goddess, so to speak, or just a sovereign, free-spirited feminine archetype. It became separated by Libra, which is kind of the marriage, which is that kind of contract of control, so to speak. I mean, not to judge it, but quite often in historical times, marriage was prearranged. Marriage was royalty, and there's a very political history of marriage. But so with these two archetypes, though, in between, I think that's really relating to the power that Vesta has, because in the temples in the history of Vesta, she or the priestesses would use their sexual energy in a spiritual, sacred way, because Virgo is all about purity, perfection. So this marriage of Scorpio and Virgo is really, really kind of, to me, just as a nice like symbolism of what Vesta means. Because sexuality can be sacred, and also service and sensuality can be done in a dutiful way, which is Virgo. So getting into Aries, though, I think this is going to be, Aries is really going to bring out, and Chiron, this is going to be interesting. I think something's going to be coming up. I think Vesta will soften because she's feminine energy. She's about devotion, but also the internal fire, because the flame of Vesta. What if actually I'll show you the glyph Vesta. It's not on this chart because it's not mainstream yet, but there's the glyph there. I actually don't know the story behind the glyph, but it's quite often this V, which is the virginity, and then flame. Yeah, I'm not really talking much about this. Here's an image. Hestia was one of the other. And the flame of the temples indicates the internal flame. Could be the sexual flame of the Kundalini, or the flame of will, which would be the Virgo, like that, the inner drive, inner power of to cultivate purity through practices and devotion and faith. And I can say a lot of this with a resonance because I have Vesta right now transiting in the North Node. I have Vesta in Cancer in my 12th house, which means that I have learned a spiritual devotion through the unconscious, which is the 12th house, and through an empathy, which is Cancer. Vesta brings this drive for devotion. So just about everything I do just simple rituals and health practices, and but just seeing the divine in everything. That's really what I like with Vesta. So Vesta with the moon in Chiron, I think, might ask us, with Chiron's kind of drive to ask us to kind of become more facing fears and facing our wounds. I think Vesta will kind of add another healing component, which could be to heal ourselves if we devote to a higher power. With the Aries, though, I think it's like seeing the power in ourselves. When we devote ourselves through, like, for example, like a healthy diet or listening to to spiritual teachers, that's all of those devotions to those external sources are nourishing ourselves, because we're integrating the ideas, or with food, we're integrating the nutrition. We take healthy supplements from plants and different products, and it's going into ourself. And so that's Aries, which is healing our individual sovereign soul. And so what's also adding to this is going to amplify the healing potential, is that Vesta with Chiron and the moon is sextiling exactly Mars in Gemini. So it's a good time to ask lots of questions, to be curious about what we want to heal, what our wound is. A lot of people don't even know what their wounds are, and I can tell you, everybody has wounds. You can't. This world, has an economy of, well, I won't even go into it, but basically, it's just, this is a school of hard knocks. That's all I'll say. You don't come out here unscathed. And it's funny. I laugh at it because it's just it's so intense and unbearable often. But when we can laugh at that would be the Gemini energy. When we can laugh at ourselves and laugh at the cosmic joke that this world is just a game, even though it's serious, it's just a game. Then we can play. We got to pay to play, they say. But if we play in that childlike way of Aries, then I think that heavy edge of like feeling, the weight of the world with Saturn, Pluto, South Node will be softened. And I notice often when I go into my inner child, my heart chakra, then I can tap into the healing energy of the heart, which is the empathy, much more than if I'm just being serious to be like, I have to do this and I have to save the world, which is very noble ideas, but sometimes children, the inspiration of children, the grace and the intuition and instincts of children can have a lot to show. And because there's something about the spiritual nature that's very childlike. Not to say we're being immature, but it's being just, it's letting our instincts flow. Yeah. So Yeah, that's really the main energies I want to talk about. I want to start doing these much regularly. Ideally I want to do dailies, like a mini horoscope every day. So I really enjoy to just detach from my little microverse and share this because I can often see the transits um, act out in my personal life because I've been studying this for about 10 years now. And it's very easy for anybody to learn astrology. You just have to be dedicated, like Vesta, that archetype, just being pure, having analytical thoughts, and having devotion. That astrology can give us the path to Dharma, which is the Hindu word for kind of like our destiny, our the right action for our future. And then karma is kind of like the energy right now with the South Node and Saturn. That's like everything we've done in this life and thousands of past lives is going to be calculated and um, cause and effect. I don't think we're judged by karma. There's always a negative connotation of karma, but I think it's just cause and effect. You do good, you'll attract good back. We do a lot of dirty stuff and we hide it. I think it's not going to go away. We can run, but we cannot hide. It's very clear to me. And I see just very majority of the collective running around like headless chickens. And, there's much more to the story. And I have a lot of compassion because most people try their best. But we have to get smarter in this game because there's a lot multi-dimensional things going on. This is not just this astrology is not just our planet. I mean, these are planets outside of our literally in our solar system and actually beyond, because many of the energies are affected through galactic agencies, and that gets into starseed dynamics. Not really much actually. So the North Node is actually on the star called Procyon, which maybe you can talk about a little bit. Procyon. Yeah, 2347. Yeah. Um, Now, Procyon is a star seed, as an interesting story. See if I can find it. I might, if I can't find it shortly, I'll just leave it. But okay, there we go. Yeah. Yeah. So Procyons originally came from Rigel, which is a star in Orion, and there's a really fascinating story to this. You know what? I'll talk about this another time. I need to get prepared. I'm not just going to be messing around. So yeah, just a lot of Pisces energy still. So but yeah, with Venus, it's great just to explore our inner creativity, like with music and Mercury, connecting to listening to spiritual. I've been listening to a lot of really cool spiritual teachers on YouTube and downloading, listening to it. That's a good thing with Mercury and Pisces. Seeking those who understand the unity of the universe, and seeing how the wisdom of others can teach us the wisdom of ourselves. So I think, yeah, that's with Vesta and Chiron. The dedication and devotion of Vesta can help the healing of our wounds with Chiron. I think that's really, so the next few days is a good opportunity to sextile off Mars. So to use our creative thoughts, to ask as many questions as we can, but also not to get, because actually Mars will be squaring Venus. Actually already has been. Well, no, because Mars just entered. But when this will be when Mars progresses through Gemini in the next 3-4 days. he will be squaring for sure Neptune. I don't know how fast Mars is going, but yeah, so they will be squaring. So I think the last thing I'll leave is just to not get too caught up in ideas, because Gemini can be a little obsessive. And if we think too much about needing to know the answer, especially with Pisces, we can get overwhelmed. So I think Venus, Mercury, and Neptune is encouraging us to have that the beingness. So yeah, just to have a little exploration, but to put it to the side sometimes. I always encourage to have 30 minutes to an hour a day with no stimulation from phones and devices, but just to be in nature and meditate and to feel the air, hear the noises of the birds, and it's very healing physiologically. I mean, not just for the mind, but actually on the emotional body and the physiological body. I'm at a stage now where when I go out of Matrix, where I stay into the beach or other parts of nature, I can feel just dozens of different effects on my body, like things releasing, and it's almost like I'm going into different worlds, different dimensions. It's like the Matrix, like artificial intelligence based electronic universe of our society. Then nature is very much quantum, holographic, just organic kind of matrix. And I'm here to bridge these worlds together. And that's why I do sun gazing, and I camp in nature all the time, because that's to allow the 12 chakras to ascend. So in the matrix, there's too many control mechanisms that it cannot allow. That's another story. So yeah, explore the mind and then leave the mind. And yeah, okay, I'll leave you this one quote. I actually shared it today. Yeah. Doctor Strange. Yeah. So this is the last thing I'll leave you with. I love this quote when I watched this movie. You cannot beat. Oh, you can't see this. I need a screen share again. Sorry. All right, you see it? There we go on the left side. You cannot beat. So on the top is the spiritual master, who's a reference to our higher self. It's never external. It's always a representation to all of self. As above, so below. As within, so without. So she's the teacher up there, our higher self, Jupiter, and then below is Doctor Strange, who is like our Mercury. Also, he's like our Mars drive, wanting to expand. Could be Jupiter as well. She could be Pluto. You can see her as Saturn. And he's asking for healing. He's actually a direct representation of Chiron, because he has a car accident. He's crippled, like what I did. I had in a car accident. And he wants to find healing. And if you've seen, I really recommend the movie Doctor Strange. And so he asks how he can heal, and then she explains that it's to do with nature and surrender. So this is the Pisces thing. You cannot beat a river into submission. You have to surrender to its current and use its power as your own. Silence your ego and your power will rise. So this is Platonian as well, because that's all about power. Silence your ego is kind of the Pisces thing, because Pisces is all about unity consciousness, which occurs when we separate our separate self to the cosmic self. And then beating the river to submission is kind of like our mind just trying to control everything, and also it can be Saturn, Pluto, that we just dominate everything because we're afraid. But it's impossible. We can't beat the river to submission. I mean, unless you're a dark Plutonian person who just drains the river dry. But that's not the point. Um, the point is that as an individual Aryan person, soul that we are, we cannot individually beat a river into submission. But when we understand the wisdom of nature, we will flow with it. So we surrender, and just like going into a river, we'll float. And then actually, instead of fighting it, we can beat it and help it, and then it will help us. And use its power as your own. Silence your ego, and your power will rise. So I hope this helps. Hope this a couple of inspirational thoughts for you. Thank you so much for watching. And keep shining like the stars seeds are. Aloha from Hawaii.